So first of all, happy birthday, Genesis. So Gayle asked us to prepare a talk, and it's entitled 10 Years and Counting. And she asked, of course, my first thought was, excellent, public speaking. But I am good at writing things down, and so I will use some notes. So Genesis did indeed start 10 years ago. Actually, it started a little more than 10 years ago. And it started with some visioning. And that was with, of course, Rev Charles, and with his mother, Susan Hall, and his sister, Sarah Hall, and others as well. And some long sessions, some deep, thoughtful, visioning sessions about what are we trying to create? What am I trying to create? And to this day, the two things that stick, that are Genesis, that have always been Genesis, are unconditional love and inherent wholeness. That is Genesis. So after, I don't know how long, I wasn't here at that time, but after lots and lots of months of visioning and a vision statement, it came to life. And Randy Singer, archivist of Genesis, tells me that there was a unnamed hotel for some weeks or months at the very start, but actually Highline Community College is where Genesis really took root. And eventually grew to the point where Genesis moved here, perhaps 8 or so years ago. But if you want to know more about that time in its history, you can ask Randy, or you can ask Susan, or today you can even ask our beloved Rev Charles. So Pam and I joined 6 years ago. My very first service was with Marla Mason, who many of you know, and Marla went on to become a deep teacher of Pam and myself. We took many, many classes from her. But that was my first service, and several people said, you gotta come back. You gotta come back and see this guy Charles. And so I did, and so Pam did. Yes, there was Charles, vibrant, young, kind of a renegade, funny, silly, and so powerful at the pulpit, in prayer. That guy can preach. Charles was the celebrity of Genesis. I remember back 6 years ago, sitting right there, experiencing jolts of truth as Charles delivered this message. We are one. We are love. I'm not broken. I'm not even damaged. I remember him talking about being fed by the wellspring of life, and I could feel it. I remember him asking on more than one occasion, asking the congregation after a powerful, powerful session about the heart and love and feeling and being true to yourself, asking us many times, is your heart open for business? The other thing I remember from that time, and I remember to this day, is the music, of course. And that music is still a big part of who we are. So at the time it was Peter Kirkland, who visits us still, and the unusual suspects, the usual suspects, call them what you will.
They know how to play.
They do know how to play. So music has absolutely been at the core of this. It was a critically important element to Charles. He spent deep time talking to Peter about the messages that he wanted conveyed. He had an incredibly strong contribution to the music ministry here, an important piece. So what else I remember back then? Cambodia, 25 Genesis people headed off to Cambodia for a couple of glorious weeks, just as many of you are about to do here next month. I remember the 5-year celebration, not so long ago, a fun party. And many Buryan Christmas celebrations by more than one name, but celebrating and giving within the Buryan community. There were people coming. There were people going. It was life as a church. And ever, there was Charles at the pulpit. A powerful time in my life. And then a transition began some years later. Charles began to lose some of his steam for it, to lose some of the power in that delivery. And he was open about it. Of course, he was most open to the board first, and I was a board of trustees member at the time. And he described to us, not easily, that he was finding it increasingly difficult to prepare and deliver a sermon. And he was very clear that he was doing deep thinking about what his future held. So it was both a shock and no surprise when Charles announced that he was stepping down from the ministry. Do you want me to change mics, Scott?
I don't think it's the mic. Something else going on up there.
I'm electrifying today.
Praise God!
Okay, so as all of you know, Charles did leave Genesis a couple of years ago to chase a dream of golf. A pro as a golf player. At least a pro as a golf teacher, or a golf course owner, or whatever it might hold. But Charles had always been passionate about golf. And there was a message in it. It was so true to Genesis, to his message of follow your heart, follow your dreams, live your life, you don't get a second chance. And so we all recognize that he really was walking his talk. I can change mics if it would help.
We can try it, but it's not that mic.
I will, and it will clear right up.
Yeah.
Is this one on? Should we test this one? Thank you, Paul. Okay, so the community, of course, was shocked. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Because this really was, in retrospect, this was Charles' church. So we held some sessions. First, Charles was kind enough to hold some sessions with the community to hear about, he asked any questions we wanted to ask, to share a little bit more deeply or again about his process in coming to this decision. And there was grieving, there was anger, gnashing of teeth, and there was in all of that we will carry on that just became so apparent. And at that point, it was the beginning of a transition from Charles' church to all of our church. I'd like to acknowledge, at that point in time, I'd like to acknowledge two people. One of them here today is Karen Williams. The other is George Baxter Holder, who was the president of our board at that time. They both stepped up with such power, such grace, fortitude, intention. There was not a step missed at that point. Honor to you, honor George, thank you. Also want to recognize the power of home office at that point in time. Up until then, home office had been a place that we sent checks to. And it all changed then. We had support, we had guidance, we had workshops, and we had a process that we chose to follow as we envisioned and created the new Genesis. So there were big sessions, there were small sessions. What do we want? Where are we trying to go with this? How long is this going to take? So we decided education continued to be super important to us. Music had to continue to be a big part of this. We wanted mysticism. We wanted leadership. We wanted responsibility. Yes, the transition had begun at that point, the new Genesis. So we had a battery of guest ministers. Pick your Sunday, pick your minister. Blessed, blessed, blessed for all we learned in that time. Then a fellow named Reverend Michael Ingersoll came in gently. And guided us and guided us beautifully, just beautifully through that point where we were starting to feel not lost, but longing. So thanks, Michael. Okay. So there was a group of people who were part of the, what was the name of the group that was trying to pick the new minister? The selection committee. So Pam, several other people in here were part of that committee, and there was videotapes and discussions and meetings and more videotapes and more discussions. And then we saw this lady named Gayle. And we thought, can we get her? Can we please get her? And we got her. So who was Gayle? Gayle was all about, and she made this clear from the start, building community and healing. And that bigger healing, that world healing, that community healing. Gayle was about the SOM principles, and then I mentioned building community. So as I look back, Gayle's time in a quick year, we have home groups. The powerful, powerful home groups that so many of you have taken part of. We have curated conversations. Gayle conducts earnest conversations with Gayle for those of you that like to get to know her a little deeper. There's been experimentation with service. Gayle has no problem experimenting. There's been classes, there's been special classes. There's been workshops, and there's been events. Yes, we got our leader. So what do I know about Gayle? I know that Gayle is strong. I know she's assertive. And Gayle, you are bold. Gayle's also very real. Even imperfect in that realness. Willing to show that imperfection, that vulnerability, perfectly comfortable using herself as the example in her sermons. What else I know is she's very intentional. She is very dedicated. She's very clear in her vision. Another thing I know about Gayle is Gayle. Gayle is always the same Gayle. At the pulpit, at the door, when I bump into her at the Evergreen State Fair, at dinner, or with a paintbrush in hand for Habitat for Humanity. If you don't know, she loves to paint doors. See Gayle if you need any doors painted. So in preparation for this, I did look back at the YouTube videos that we put together. And in the last year, Gayle was starring in 47 of them. Powerful lady. Amongst other things, I did notice 12 different boots or shoes. There was a threat of bare feet during one of the sermons. And I count 4 hairstyles. Gayle is blossoming. Gayle is releasing. Gayle is healing before our eyes. Gayle is growing with us. So whether it's 4 hairstyles or 12 different boots, it's one purple stole, worn with power. It's one Gayle delivering in grace, leading one Genesis, our community. I welcome Gayle to her church. I welcome you to your church. And I welcome us to our church, founded on unconditional love.
Reverend Gayle asked me to do her inspirational reading, and it is from Mariah Mountain Dreamer, The Invitation. And she did so because it represents a continuity in relationship, in union. It was read at her own marriage to her beloved Paul, and it's now being read here at her union with Genesis Global Spiritual Center. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for. And if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow. If you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you from the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty, every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments.
Good morning, Genesis. Good morning. I have the privilege this morning, along with ministerial student and practitioner Bernie H. Campbell, to read to you the Declaration of Principles that were written back in 1927 by our founder, Ernest Holmes. And we today are reading them as we, rather than I, as Dr. Holmes wrote them. So are you ready, Bernie?
I'm ready. Thank you for that. Wait a minute. I've had a tough cough for the last couple of days, so I got to eat my... Okay, here we go. We believe in God, the loving Spirit, the Almighty, the one indestructible, absolute, and self-existing cause.
This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation.
The manifestation universe is the body of God. It is the logical and the necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God.
We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in everyone, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit.
We believe in the internal, the internality, the morality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding.
We believe that the kingdom of heaven is within us, and that we experience this kingdom to the degree that we become conscious of it.
We believe in the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every natural, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all.
We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God.
One God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence.
We believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of any kind, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God.
We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through the universal mind, which is the law of God.
We are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it.
We believe in the healing of all of the sick through the power of the mind. We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind.
We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all.
We believe in our own spirit, our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny.
And we understand that the life of man is God.
Pick a mic. My name's Kim Boyden. I'm a practitioner here at Genesis, and I'm also a board member. One beautiful sunny day, I believe it was in August or sometime towards the end of summer, that the Board of Trustees came together for an entire day. And we visioned, and we prayed, and we came together to make some small changes, and I'll read this, on our unique contribution. And we also joined that one mind so beautifully in creating what we are passionate about. Our unique contribution, Genesis Spiritual Center's unique contribution, is creating a community, a spiritual community of unconditional love in co-creation with the divine, in which the natural joy, beauty, and perfection of life is revealed. We are passionate about living a life of physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial well-being. Living a prosperous and generous life in gratitude. Deepening one's awareness and relationship with the divine. Being open, receptive, and welcoming all people, all faiths, and all spiritual paths. Celebrating life through creative self-expression. Celebrating youth and family.
Let me know you're here. All of these lines are being crossed on the atmosphere, and I need to know things are gonna look up. I feel us drowning in the sea still. When there is no safe place, no safe place to put my head. When you feel the world shake from the words being said, 'cause calling all angels.
I'm going to get this one out of the way right now. Hello, everyone. Hello. I bring you greetings from your sister congregation, Amazing Grace Spiritual Center in Seattle, Washington. I love that that song was Calling All Angels, because I realize if I could be really honest with you, could I be really honest? Could I be really, really honest with you? I have been in the pulpit for 8 years, and I have never been so stressed out about preparing a talk. And I was asking myself, why am I putting myself under so much pressure? And I realized it was because I love Gayle so much. And I love this community so much. And I so want my talk to inspire you, to bless you, to encourage you, to lift you. And that is why I was so stressed out. And then I realized I had to tell you the truth of why I was so stressed out so I could let it go. And I love that this song was Calling All Angels, because I want to deepen for a moment here what we are doing. And so I am calling the presence of Rabbi Jesus. And I am calling the presence of Rabbi Jesus on my right. And I am calling the presence of Brother Buddha on the left. And I want you all to just feel the presence of the historical Buddha here. And we must anchor what we are doing in the presence of the Holy Mother. And so I am calling forth the presence of Amachi, who is the Hindu saint who is the living incarnation of the Holy Mother. Let's take a deep breath together. And I'm calling her here, and I'm calling forth my beloved Swami Shivananda of the Hindu tradition. So I'm anchoring what we are doing here in the presence of these four great souls, living and passed on. And I'm welcoming all the angels of every person who ever came through here. Those who may not be physically present today for whatever good reason, because they're sleeping in, or they passed on, or they moved on. But every person who has been in this space is a part of what is here now. So, never before has the world needed this philosophy, this religion, and this way of life. I am in love with science of mind, and because of that, I automatically love every Science of Mind center. Thank you for finding Science of Mind. Thank you for not leaving me alone in this. This spirituality, which is free of dogma, free of superstition, free of coercion, that sees no conflict between science, religion, and philosophy, and in its purest expression, free of all cultural prejudice. It is no accident that at least half of Science of Mind ministers are women, and many gay men and lesbians are in our ministry. And I did not know I was going to say this, but when I was growing up, I was told a lie. That as a gay man, I was evil, sinful, and the devil incarnate. And that was a lie. And it is a lie that any human soul is not going to heaven. The truth is, heaven is happening. And we are in it to the degree we experience it. And any other thing that is taught about religion, that some are going to heaven and some are not, is a lie. And I want everyone in this room to know that. And that is why I love this teaching. Through my 22 years of involvement in religious science, first I was hired as a music director for Center for Spiritual Living Seattle. I wasn't raised in any religion, and I am so grateful, although there's nothing wrong with being raised in religion. But I wasn't. And so I had a very open mind, and it has been very easy for me to find the truth and to recognize it when I see it. I didn't have to fight off anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I found this. I was hired to be a music director, And then I discovered that I was actually a congregant, that I would show up even if they didn't pay me to be the music director. Because I actually quit for a little while. And I used to, as a music director, see the people coming in late. I had no idea I was going to tell this story. I'm telling you the truth on myself here. So I would be up here, I'd be with the band, I'd be leading songs, and then the people that would be coming in late, the people who would be coming 20 minutes late, and I had so many judgments about the people who are coming 20 minutes late! Didn't hear all this great music we prepared. Well, when I wasn't the music director, I was late every Sunday. Life is funny! So I discovered that I was a congregant. Then I became a practitioner. Then I became a minister. And then I became an ordained minister, and that is just like I'm a lifer. Like there's, you know, you're in it. Now you're in it. You're like way in it. And what I have found through Science of Mind is a cosmology or explanation of the universe that actually makes sense. Have you ever been involved in a teaching where what they teach makes your head go like this? This is a teaching that makes sense. Through Science of Mind, I was able to heal my issues, and I am now 22 years in a very happy marriage. And that is because of Science of Mind. Because of Science of Mind, I healed family relationships. I have a beautiful relationship with my family, and I was very estranged from all of my family. So Science of Mind gave me back my family. And it gives me meaningful work, it gives me spiritual community, it gives me financial freedom. My husband and I 20 years ago bought a house in this little funky neighborhood called Wallingford, and now we won the Amazon lottery. And Science of Mind has given me opportunities to serve locally and globally, and I want to just say I'm so thrilled that we are collaborating. These two communities are collaborating on this trip to Cambodia. Are any of the Cambodia travelers here today? Yeah. So we want to just thank you for participating in this, and to say that we're going to be launching a trip to Kenya, Safari and Service, in September. So if you don't want to go to Cambodia, you might want to go to Kenya. I want you to get what I have gotten, and what I have been able to give through this way of life. The thing that feeds me so much about my participation in these global service projects is when the world gets me down, and when I feel like, oh God, you know, I'm sure it's not true of you. But you may have a friend who gets discouraged by the state of the world and the state of our country. And when I get there, I can say, I'm not saving the world, but I'm doing something that is real, that is really touching the lives of people here and in Cambodia. And that helps a lot. You know, to do something, I can say, I'm doing something. And I want that for you. And I'm also here not only to participate in the installation of this, you know, fabulous woman who I just adore, but because I want you to, I want to challenge you to your greatness. You may be thinking that these are really hard times. How can you be great when the times are really hard? But I love what the radio personality Paul Harvey said. He said, at times like this, it's important to remember that there have always been times like these. It's always been bad. If you look at it from the material mind. If you look at it from the material mind, if it wasn't what we have today, it was Y2K, it was the Vietnam War, it was the Cold War, it was AIDS, you know, it's always, if you have a material mind in the way that you're looking at the world, it always looks bad. But what Science of Mind teaches us, and what Charles in his leadership so brilliantly brings forward, is that it's all love, and heaven is what is real and what is actually happening. In Hinduism, they put it this way: from bliss we come, in bliss we abide, and to bliss we do return. And these musicians know that. They know that. because music is bliss, and it arises out of silence like that. That's heaven. Or you might be saying to yourself, well look, this is only a small congregation in Burien. We are not going to set the world on fire. Oh no, 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 that is a lie. My message to you today is that this is actually the age of miracles. We are living in the age of miracles. It has never been easier to do great things. It has never been easier to bless the world in astounding ways. It has never been easier to bring technology and spirituality together and to make a real difference in the world. I have to remind us of this beautiful quote from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So I'm going to tell you 4 little short stories about small groups that change the world. The first one is started in 1935. There was a little logging town in the northwest here, and they decided that they were going to, and this is in the depths of the Depression, they decided that they were going to have a boxing match. So they were going to put on this boxing match, and the ladies of the town said, what about us? And they had a fellow who lived there named Angus Bomer, and they said, we want to put on a play. And they put on a Shakespeare play called Twelfth Night. And thank God they did, because the boxing match lost a ton of money, but the play sold out 2 nights and saved the festival. And it led to the creation of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which is the largest theater company in the world. A small group of people who wanted a play in the depth of the Depression. Hello. Another small group, there was a mother's club at a private school that raised money to buy a teletype link to a new GE computer at the University of Washington. And a teenage boy who went to that school logged on and got access to this the hottest, the most advanced computer. In those days, it probably filled up 3 rooms. All night long when they were not using it, from like 11 at night until 6 in the morning. And his name is Bill Gates. And he became the richest man in the world. In a small group of mothers, a mother's club. How innocent does that sound? In 1959, a group of 17 adults started a Science of Mind study group in a vacuum cleaner store. The first group leader, Roger Miller, served for 2 years. Then Lester Bashara served for 3 years. Then Fred Vogt served for 27 years. And they're in their 4th chapter now. Roger Teal has been there for 23 years. Mile High Church in Denver now occupies a multi-building campus featuring an innovatively built domed sanctuary that seats 1,500 people. They have hundreds of practitioners, and they serve a congregation of 20,000 people. I am challenging you to your greatness. Now you may be sitting there going, I'm here and I have my own problems and I'm here to solve my own problems. Thank you very much. Your being here to solve your problems, to get your answers, to get your spiritual food is perfect. You are perfect. And the sky is the limit. Be ambitious. Be outrageous. Go beyond yourself. Ask yourself, what would my dream community be like? Do not sit waiting there in your car for the McDonald's window to open and give you something. You are here. You are powerful. Each of you is a pulsating center of prosperity. Take a deep breath. I need to say that 2 more times. Each of you is a pulsating center of prosperity. And the sky is the limit for you. I don't care what has happened before now. I don't care what people have told you. I don't care what has happened to you. I don't care what mistakes, setbacks, discouragements, pain, sorrows, or sufferings you have been through. You are perfect. You are a pulsating center of prosperity. Give. Give more. Receive more. Play a big game here. That's my message to you. I want to tell you about one last small group. I'm in Colette, my partner in ministry at Amazing Grace, and I meet with ministers in the Ballard neighborhood in Seattle, and there is a woman who runs a very small church there called St. Luke's. And in St. Luke's is a group of 5 women in their 80s who, for decades, have been serving 200 homeless people a day, Monday through Friday. I'm sure that the 17 adults that gathered in that vacuum cleaner store did not imagine that they were launching a mega church. But something new. Will you catch the vision of greatness that is possible for you? I say, heal your stuff, get the marriage, get the job, heal your body, all that, and then also, at the same time, build a great community. Don't wait till your whole life is together to step up. Don't wait until you have all the money that you think you need in order to be generous, because you will never give, because it will never be enough. I can say that because I'm not in the pulpit here. Actually, I've been told to say that at Amazing Grace. Don't underestimate yourself. At Amazing Grace, we often refer to ourselves as small but mighty. We have about 100 on a Sunday. We're not that different in size than you. And at 100 members, I said that. Okay. Go to the purple ink. Okay. Reverend Charles founded Genesis Global 10 years ago and gave you a great foundation. And he didn't do it alone. And he was the goose at the front of the V. So look at where you are. And I just want to say, when I came in here the first time, it's so great. Like, you know, I'm a quadruple Virgo. Like, I notice the gold, right? I notice the banners. I notice that God is love. It's great. You've been given a wonderful worship space. That is fantastic. And the question now is, what is Genesis 2.0 going to be? Okay? So the big tip from our friends in evangelical Christianity is focus on health, not size. It's not the numbers. It's not the size of the boat. It's the motion of the ocean. That's something else. You deserve a spiritual community that serves you, inspires you, and challenges you. It may take getting involved to bring something to life that starts with you. You may see a need. Do not sit there and go, they should do this, and you should do this. In Spanish, we have a saying, nosotros es mucha gente, which means we is a lot of people. In black churches, the church ladies always talk about raising up a minister. You are raising up ministers. Charles didn't do it all by himself. You know, it is not a parade if nobody is following you. It's a give and take relationship. I want to say one last thing. Besides the fact that I didn't say at the beginning, I'm so incredibly honored to be here today. I really am thrilled for you. I am for you. I have said to Gayle, I am for you. I am for you. Whatever we can do for you, we want to do for you. I want to tell you a last little story, and this has to do with being the change you want to see in the world. Okay? So, we started Amazing Grace with a Sunday night service at Seattle Unity downtown. And after a few years, Spirit called and said, it's time for you to have your own space. So we got access to a beautiful historic church building. And our annual budget at that time was $88,000. And we needed to raise $88,000 to do our part in fixing up this old church. Can you read between my lines here? It was like a lot of money. And we got our one-time list of all the addresses of all the 440 CSLs, and we sent them an appeals letter with envelopes. And we heard from 5. And I will tell you that I was not my happy cheerful, spiritual self. Because 5 out of 440 is not very many. And I, pissed and moaned about it, and then, like Spirit, kind of knocked on the door and said, you need to be the change. And so I suggested, and the core council agreed, and on top of our 10% tithe, we are a tithing community. And we practice and teach tithing, and we give 10% of the gross off the top. And now we also set aside 2% of our gross on top of the 10%. Take a deep breath. And that is our new ministries fund. And now from then on, no matter what happens, if any CSL sends an appeal, we've got money. In fact, we call the president of the denomination from time to time and say, we got money to give. Who's doing great work? That is an invitation. But I don't know what your greatness will be. But that is an example of our deciding to be the change that we wanted to see. Because if every one of the 440 CSLs gave $100, that's $4,400. Or is that 44,000? 44,000. If they gave $10, it's 4,400. $4,400 would have meant a lot to us. So I don't know what the change is that you may want to see here, but I'm challenging you to be it. I'm challenging you to be a great congregant. That's my message. Be a great congregant. Be a great congregant. Show up. Care. Give. Serve. Ask for what you need. That's what makes a great community. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. I've been to church maybe 3 times in the last 2 years and 3 months. And what a refreshing morning to be here. Thank you. Thank you. I feel fed. It's a beautiful thing. I generally agree with about, I'd say 99.5% of what Reverend Eric Odell says. And this morning's no different. I'd like to add something. And if I may have 30 seconds of liberty. That the most important sermon you'll ever hear is the one that's inside of you. There's a seduction that comes along with participating in a church, and it's called, they have my answer. And they never will. Whoever the they is. Reverend Gayle is an extraordinary human being. Everybody can feel it. She's never going to have your answer. Just know that right now. Yes. Ever. Don't put it on her. And don't be seduced by the conformity of community. We want community because it feels good. Everybody, if you're a human being, you desire to participate in a community. There's very rare human beings that don't, but even then, they wake up at some point and say, wow, I wish I had somebody to talk to. The conformity of community is when you stop listening to yourself. And then you're dead. You're gone. You're lost. Be great. Your greatness comes out of you knowing who the F you are. Yes. Fine. Okay. That's it. Ernest Holmes, with his vision and through his writing, lit the torch of religious science. Those who have carried it since believed in the same principles, which we have declared as our own today. They knew, as we know, that those principles are impersonal and universal, that they work for all, without exception. And they knew, as we know, that the power of the universe responds to the faith of all, regardless of the manner by which that faith may be known, or the organization to which it belongs. God is no respecter of labels. Religious science does not own the corner of truth. But we know, too, that an illuminated consciousness, a trained mind, and an open heart together create the greatest avenue through which the universal power can flow. And so there is a good reason to celebrate today the installation of those who carry the torch and declare the principles, as well as illumine consciousness, train the minds, and open the hearts of those who come learn and apply the science of mind to their lives. On the larger, more impersonal level, this center is the natural outcome of the consciousness of women and men far removed from this place today. And it is even more than that. This center is, in fact, nothing less than the culmination of a divine idea in the mind of God. On a more intimate level, as we have seen, it is the direct result of an idea in the minds of those who dreamed it, established it, nurtured it, and grew it for these past 10 years, who have been willing to be its heads, hearts, hands, and feet. Today, we install another generation of leadership. One who by her willingness will grow this center and continue its vibrant tradition of community, joy, and love. I have come to know Gayle mostly through lunch at Super 6 in Columbia City and through listening to Gary Ninneman this morning, but also to peering into the heart of this woman and realizing that she is the real deal. And I absolutely believe this woman, Gayle, to be qualified for the position of senior minister of this center. Board of Trustees, licensed practitioners, congregation, and friends, we are gathered here today to install this minister of religious science as senior minister of Genesis Global Spiritual Center. As senior minister of this center, Reverend Gayle Dillon shall act in the following capacities. She's already Dillon. This is just words, right? She serves as the senior minister of the congregation and counselor to all who come to her for help. She serves as an official and accredited teacher of Science of Mind classes under the authority of a church covenant with Centers for Spiritual Living. Every minister of religious science must first have received a license and recognition as a practitioner before they may be licensed or ordained as a minister. Therefore, she serves always as a practitioner to the needs of the people when the call is made. And if you don't want the call, turn your phone off. She serves as the vision caster for this center. Reverend Gayle, do you accept our declaration of principles and promise to adhere to them and make them the basis of your teaching?
I do.
Do you so consecrate yourself to this ministry that you will do your utmost at all times to reflect the Christ within in all that you think, say, or do?
I will.
Do you so dedicate yourself that you will be constantly aware of the Spirit within all people, and that you will see only the perfect spiritual person, perfect in mind, body, and spirit?
I do.
Do you promise to minister faithfully and lovingly to the people now committed to your charge, and to seek ever to be an example of moderation, patience, and loving kindness?
I do.
You're doing your best. I'll do my best. Give me a break with this. Being a minister is no small thing. May the infinite Spirit who empowers you to do all these things grace you with the strength faithfully to perform the same and to live the principles of this teaching and our Centers for Spiritual Living organization. I invite the board members of this center to please come forward. We now present to you those individuals who have been duly elected to serve on your board of trustees. Not only do these board members oversee the business affairs of your church center, but their individual and collective awareness establishes a consciousness for the entire congregation. Recognizing the authority you have entrusted to them, we now charge them with this responsibility. Do you promise to follow the light of truth, seeking at all times to be aware of what is right rather than who is right? Do you accept Reverend Gayle Dillon as the senior minister of this church, as a spiritual leader and a teacher?
We do.
Will you support her vision, her ecclesiastic leadership, and her ideas to foster, nurture, and grow this spiritual community? Thank you very much. You may be seated. You do and will. Oh, yeah. You don't want to sit down and come back up? Now invite the licensed practitioners of the center to please come forward. Your minister knows and understands the role of the licensed practitioner as part of the ecclesiastical team, establishing and maintaining a continual consciousness of the spiritual vision of this church. You also carry out most of your work in the great and powerful silence. The fruits of this work are manifested as demonstrations in the lives of yourselves, your clients, and your church. Do you consecrate yourself to this spiritual vision and activity?
Yes.
Can you promise that at all times it will be obvious where your commitment is?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. Invite the members of this community to please stand. Anybody that considers this center your spiritual home, please stand. You are the voice of this church. You are the ambassadors of religious science in this community. You are the backbone as the volunteers giving service. Do you promise to uphold and practice the principles of religious science moment by moment?
Yes, I do.
Do you promise to uphold the vision of this church?
Yes.
If you have a differing opinion, do you promise to meditate first, think secondly, and then keep it to yourself? meditate first, think secondly, and speak finally.
Yes, I do.
Do you promise to give of your time, talent, and treasure to this beloved activity known as Genesis Global Spiritual Center?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. It's my great honor today to present to you the Board of Trustees, the practitioners, and the congregation, your duly installed senior minister of this center, the Reverend Gayle Dillon.
I am actually going to stick to the program and wait because I wanted to lead off what I have to say to all of you with a song that Paul will tell you about. So I'll be back.
Good morning, Genesis. Good morning. Oh my God, I have serious issue with who placed me right after that. Are you kidding me? It was you? Several years ago, when Gayle was graduating ministerial school, she said to me, "Hey, you want to sing at my graduation?" "Yes," I said. I had no idea what I would do, but it was several months away, and I felt, I'll come up with something. I had just seen the years of hard work, and I just wanted to be part of it. I've been writing songs for 40 years. Everybody has their process. Mine is to babble. I babble. I have never in my life had a subject and then written a song about that subject. I babble, and a line comes bubbling up. I go, ooh, that sounds good. And then another line may join it, and I go, I might have something here. So this is what happened. Somewhere in the month before Gayle's graduation, I was babbling. And a couple of lines stuck together, and a couple more, and maybe I had a chorus, and I went, this is good. This is a keeper. And then I went, oh, that's what I'm writing about. Cool. I finished the song. And then I realized, for the first time, this is not me singing to an audience. This is Gayle having a conversation with God. And I knew, that's it, I gotta do that one. That's what I'm gonna do. I did it. It was awesome. I recorded it later. It became the title track of an album I did. And I can't tell you how honored I am to do this today for you guys. And for Gayle. This is Brand New Day. I'm awake. I'm alive. It's a brand new day. Open my eyes now. I can see. And it's more than a beautiful thing. It's more than a beautiful thing. On the shoulders of 10,000 strong, I stand up, I
I stand tall. Without your love, it's a long way down. Without your love, I couldn't shout out loud. Hey! I'm awake, I'm alive. It's a brand new day. I've opened my eyes now. I can see that it's more than a beautiful thing. It's more than a beautiful thing. I hear the sound of the world turning around. I see the colors of the love I have found. It was a long time, but now it's gone. When I ran fast, but I played small. But now I'm awake, yes I am. I'm alive. It's a brand new day. I've opened my eyes now. I can see it's more than a beautiful thing. It's more than a beautiful thing. I rest my head upon your pillow. I walk my feet upon your floor. I can't remember when I met you, but I won't forget you anymore. 'Cause I can see you in the eyes of a child, and I can see you in the river wide. And when I find that I've gone too far, I close my eyes and there you are. 'Cause I'm awake, I'm alive. It's a brand new day. I've opened my eyes. I'm awake, I'm alive. It's a brand new day. I've opened my eyes. I'm awake, I'm alive. I'm awake, and it's more than a beautiful thing. It's more than a beautiful thing. Yes, it is. It's more than a beautiful thing. Hey! I'm awake, I'm alive. I'm awake, and it's more than a beautiful thing. It's more than a beautiful thing. Yes, it is.
Can I just say, first of all, that nothing warms my heart more than seeing my husband get to perform with you guys. And, you know, that is his dream come true. He said to me after they were practicing, he came out and he goes, "Oh my God, do you know how fabulous that was?" And I said, "Yeah, I can imagine." And like Eric, I want to be honest. No pressure to follow Eric, you know, to follow Charles. It's like, holy goodness sake. And yet, that is high pitch. She wants to sit by her dad. Yay. This is Mila. I know. Mila, could you come here for a minute? Could your dad bring you up here just because the community hasn't seen you in so long? Charles, bring her up for just a second. Do you mind? No, she doesn't want to. Okay. Never force a child to do anything they don't want to do. She's grown quite a bit since you've seen her. So I was freaking out this morning, like, what am I going to talk about? This is huge. This is huge. And Charles kept saying to me through the service, wow, really well done on how I had mapped everything, what songs I picked, and why those songs are so important to me. And now I'm not going to remember the names of any of them. Better, thank you. So Better Way. So what I have always said since the day I walked through this door, it's not about changing what was done here before. It's about building on top of that, because obviously it was so, and is so amazing. You know, the vision that Charles had when I met him for lunch, and I said, you know, what was your vision? And that was 10 years ago. He's kind of like, let me think about that. You know, and rightly so. And so when I picked the song Better Way, because what I got from him and what I kept telling him is, you know, I was doing the same thing in Santa Fe, is to provide a better way for each and every one of us to live our life. And like Eric said, that is what we teach you. That is why this first 2 rows, you know, that's why we suit up and show up as Wes does every Sunday. It's why we do what we do. And it's why practitioners are practitioners. It's because we know we deserve to have an amazing world that we live in. And the way to do that is to really start living this philosophy. And really living it is your responsibility. I can't make you do that. Charles couldn't make you do that. And what happens as a minister sometimes is, because we know it works, because we dive into it deep, you know, we swim around in it, sometimes we fumble, and yet we know when we're not doing our best, and we go back in and think, okay, what is it about me that attracted that into my life? How can I shift that? And we want that for everybody that walks into one of these centers. And Eric reminded you that that's not our, as much as we want it, that's not our responsibility. You have to. When the banquet is laid out before you, and it is here at Genesis all the time, in everything we teach, and in the community first, and workshops, and Wednesday night services, we are constantly providing a buffet for you. And you have to step up to the table. And I will say that. You know, Eric said, well, I'll say it because it's not my pulpit. And I know he says it to Amazing Grace. You have to, when people, oh, they don't spiritually feed me. Not our job. You know, the first time I said that to somebody, they're like, what? I thought that's why you were there. I'm like, no, I can't feed you. Your job is to feed yourself. My job is to make sure that that banquet table is as full as possible. And that's what we build here together. I loved when Eric said, when you have a bride, and Reverend Susie used to say this to me all the time. When somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I think we should do this. Great, when do you want to start doing it? You know, I will, you know, how many people are you going to need? When would you like me to put, oh, well, no. I don't mean I want to do it. I just think it would be a good idea. Those ideas usually don't get done. Unless you're willing, when you say, I have a great idea, you've just said, I want to do this because it's a great idea. And so that's part of the challenge that I give to each of you, is how we make a better way. Because that's what we're here for in community, is to make a better way, individually and collectively. Thanks for giving this to me, because I'm nervous. Well, imagine. I love that song because I like to imagine that regardless of what side of a political fence we sit in, how we choose to, who we choose to love, how we choose to practice our religion, that we honor everybody's choice. That we don't make somebody wrong because they don't look like us, they don't love like us, or they don't practice their faith like us. And I will say, the most heartbreaking thing to me is when, as a religious scientist, we get really high and mighty. Like we've got all the answers. We've got the answers for us. Please don't make other people wrong just because they don't believe like you. The world is full of choices. Full of choices. And because it's full of choices, they get to choose. And your job is not supposed to be to convert them. Your job is to show that this is how I accept everybody. So that somebody will go, oh, I want what these people over here have. Or I want what these people over here have. That's better. You know, that opens me up. And so that is what imagine. Can we imagine a world where that happens? Where we're not throwing stones at each other because we disagree. And I've said this on numerous Sundays. I think I'm as right as you think you are right. And so what we've got is two right people and no solution. We have to listen to each other. We have to open up our hearts. We have to take that 18-inch journey from the mind to the heart and say, okay, maybe you don't agree with me, but let's find some common ground. We all like food. Right? That's a common ground. Curated conversations that we do here on Tuesday night is kind of the beginning of opening that up. And it's, as Eric said, it's small and it is mighty. And it's going to grow. It's going to grow. Calling all angels, I'm calling all of you. I'm tagging each and every one of you that are sitting here. You are angels. You're God-informed. You have heard it over and over and over again. Don't let anybody take that away from you. You're absolutely divinely guided to be the best you can be. To be the absolute best you can be. And when you're not the best you can be, there's only two entities, if you will, that are going to be kind of disappointed. You and that God within you. And that God within you knows when you're playing small. And that's why I chose that song. Because the first time I heard it, I was like, seriously, I hadn't even, you know, he articulated everything I was feeling from the first day I walked in to a Center for Spiritual Living. Wake up. Wake up. That's your call. That is your call. As an angel on this plane, in this realm, if you will, however you want to define it, wake up. The world needs us. It needs our love. It needs our compassion. It needs us seeing beyond what most people see with their human eyes. It needs us. Us, religious scientists, us, you know, people who are compassionate, whatever you want to call yourself, we are needed. And if you want to call it, I saw this somewhere, we're God's army. We really are. And for people who have problems with the word God, I've always said, then call it Bob. Somebody said, why do you say that? It's in honor of my dad. You know, call it something that you're comfortable with. It doesn't matter. Just know just know that we are needed now more than ever, just like Eric pointed out. We've always been needed. This is not new. It looks different to us with everything that's going on. And so I cannot thank this community enough. The practitioners, the Board of Trustees, for how welcome you have made me feel. Because when Charles and I sat down, and I'm sure Eric and I had talked about it, but to have the founding minister look at me and go, that probably was a little difficult. You think? You ever try to walk in behind Jesus? And I told him, this is true. It used to be every time I'd hear his name, my whole body would go, okay, they're talking about him again. And then one day, that didn't happen. And that was the day that I really realized I had stepped in to being the minister here. And that I owned it and I was it. And so thank you all for watching me, as Gary said, grow, soften my hair. Just me becoming part of you. I cannot thank you enough. Namaste.
I heard it said once that the way you spell dreams is M-O-N-E-Y. So now is our time of offering. How many people here want to live a life that's fully funded? One thing I have learned is that the best way to get what you want is to give what you want. And so I would love to call Nancy forward with the basket. And three most important things, come right on up next to me. Let's get that basket next to me. That's a big basket. I love that. I think we're going to have to change our baskets. We got these little plastic jobbers. That's great. Talk about big expectations. Oh, that's good. That's good, Gayle. That's good. So, let's see. What you can put in this basket is your gifts, your financial gifts. And equally important, you can put your prayer requests in there. We always say that our whole community was founded on prayer. Prayer really works. You've got to work these practitioners. You've got to give them something to do. You know. How many practitioners love to pray? Yeah, that's what they're here for. And I'm inviting you to think about going beyond. Can we get some little background music because I'm about to pray? Can you do a little kind of woo-woo thing on that keyboard? I would love the offering today to be beyond the beyond. I would love everybody here. I would love there to be 100% giving. You may have thought about an amount that you were giving. Oh my God, take a deep breath. You tell people the truth and they stop reading. It would be great. I'm calling forth giving beyond what we expected to give. Because that spirit of generosity, you know, if you want the money to come quickly, give quickly. If you want the money to be more than you need, give more than what is needed. Because all you do is make space. So, I am adding my gift, and I am blessing all that has happened here. I am blessing the circulation of love. I am blessing the circulation of truth, and I am blessing the circulation of our material wealth. I claim for and with Genesis Global that this is an idea in the mind of God that is fully supported, fully funded, and fully supplied. I bless all that is freely given me. I know that it returns tenfold to the giver. I expect great things to unfold, and I know that every penny of this money is used wisely, consciously, and well to bless the planet. I know that when we give, we are really giving to ourselves because we are only one. And if you're in agreement with that, say together with me, thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, Holy Mother.
Thank you, Holy Mother.
Thank you, thing itself.
Thank you, thing itself.
Thank you, Spirit.
Thank you, Spirit.
Thank you, Buddha Mind.
Thank you, Buddha Mind.
Thank you, Christ Spirit.
Thank you, Christ Spirit.
We got all the names covered. Amen?
Amen.
And so it is.
So it is. Let's not forget Bob. Thank you, Bob.
So we just take a moment to say thank you, Mother, Father, God, and Bob, for what is in this basket here. We are so absolutely grateful for the gifts that support this community, that support the world outside of this community, and for the abundance that is absolutely growing and manifesting itself in each member of this community. Thank you, God.
So it is.
So if we just take a moment, close our eyes in gratitude for this wonderful service today, this ceremony, this coming together, opening of hearts, opening of the mind to that next highest idea of Genesis. How good it is that each and every person here shared their energy today in this blessing of this community, its 10th anniversary, and bringing into the fold even more so our beloved Reverend Gayle Dillon. We are so blessed to have her here. I know each of us today take with them out the doors and into the community that feeling of love and acceptance, and know that it goes out tenfold to those around, and all it does is keep rippling back. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, for today, for this community, and for all the blessings that each of us are. And so it is. Amen. So we're going to do the reception.
Holy, holy, holy ground, we are standing on holy ground. Love and laughter and joy abound. Yeah. We are standing on holy, holy ground. Holy, holy, holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. Love and laughter and joy abound. We are standing